Yes, students, let us start with a topic, pollination. Last class I told you, before knowing about fertilization, it is necessary to know about pollination, isn't it? So I explained about male reproductive organs up till the formation of male gametes, and then again female reproductive organ up till the formation of female gamete, and I told you the structure and other details of the male reproductive organ and female reproductive organ, isn't it? Now, let us say pollination. What is pollination? Transfer of pollen grains from the anther onto the receptive stigma of a flower is called pollination. So, what's pollination once more? I'll just repeat. See, this is the stem, okay? This is the node. A leaf arises at the node, and then calyx, corolla, andrecium, and gynoecium. This is the anther, okay? This is the anther. I'll just show you the anther which has been dehisced. See, this is the anther which is open. This is the anther which is open. These are the pollen grains. These are the pollen grains. Okay. Now, what did I say? Transfer of pollen grains from the anther onto the receptive stigma of a flower is called pollination. So, if these are the pollen grains, okay, let me label this as pollen grains, okay. So, transfer of pollen grains from where? From the anther, okay, this is the anther. Where to? Onto the stigma, receptive stigma of a flower is called pollination, okay. This is said to be pollination. Now, what did we observe here? I told you stigma, that means gynoecium is present. Next, I told you anther, that means what? Andrecium is present. So, a flower with both andrecium and gynoecium is said to be what? It is said to be a bisexual flower. But here I have shown all the four whorls like calyx, corolla, andrecium and gynoecium. Thereby we say it's a complete flower. Anyway, that's not necessary for us now. Here we are talking about what? Andrecium and gynoecium. So, transfer of pollen grains from the anther, okay, from the anther onto the receptive stigma of a flower is said to be pollination. Is said to be what? Pollination. Same definition holds good for the one of the type of pollination. Let us see. What are the types of pollination? The types of pollination. Number one is self-pollination. Okay. And the second one is cross-pollination. Cross-pollination. And the third one is said to be geitonogamy. What's the other name for self-pollination? It is also said to be autogamy. What about cross-pollination? It is also said to be xenogamy. Okay, this is as per to your syllabus. They say cross-pollination and xenogamy are same, but there's slight difference. Anyway, that I'll let you know what is it in future classes now. Okay, so hope you understood the definition of pollination. Now, let us come to the first type, that is self-pollination. Same flower, just have a look at this. I told you a flower there, but here I use the word same flower. Means what? Transfer of pollen grains from the anther onto the receptive stigma receptive stigma of the same flower, okay, of the same flower. That's what I told you. One word I'll be adding, same flower, is said to be self-pollination. Transfer of pollen. Please remember, transfer of pollen grains from the anther onto the receptive stigma of the same flower is said to be self-pollination. When I say same flower, 100% the flowers must be bisexual. Okay, for self-pollination to take place, okay, what must be there? The flowers must be bisexual. But all the bisexual flowers will not undergo self-pollination. Why? Sometimes even though the flower is bisexual, they go for cross-pollination due to many reasons. Cross-pollination is also said to be outbreeding device. Now, about the outbreeding devices, I'll come later. Okay, now concentrate on this. What did I tell you? If the flowers are bisexual, doesn't mean that 100% self-pollination will take place. But for self-pollination to occur, the flowers must be bisexual. Hope you understood. Okay. If there's androecium and gynoecium only, then we say on the same flower, pollen grains falls on the stigma of the same flower. Passing on to the next part. Okay, that's about the first one, that is self-pollination. What about the second one? Cross-pollination. Cross-pollination, the very common example is papaya. Okay, papaya is a very common example. Now, what happens in case of papaya? The plants are dioecious. Means what? Eicious means plant. Di means two. For the same papaya plant, we have two plants for the pollination and fertilization to get completed. That means what? We have a male papaya plant and we have a female papaya plant. So, by now you must have understood. When I say male papaya plant, it will have only unisexual male flowers. Female papaya plant will have unisexual female flowers. Okay, let me just draw and show you. See, this is the male papaya plant. Suppose this is the stem and there is a node here, a leaf here. This will be the calyx, okay. This is the corolla and you'll find only androecium. So, what is this now? Androecium. So, it has only androecium, no gynoecium. Thereby, what is this now? This is unisexual male flower. Male flower. So, this is said to be what? Male papaya plant. This is a male papaya plant. Okay. On the other hand, imagine that this is producing the pollen grains. Let me show you here. The pollen grains are produced. Thereby, the anther must show dehiscence. Now, these pollen grains are carried away. These pollen grains are being carried away. Okay. So, what are these now? I told you these are the pollen grains. As and when they are being carried away, a time may come wherein the velocity of wind decreases and the pollens may fall down. When it falls, by chance it may fall on the stigma of the papaya plant only. This is in case of wind pollination. See, when I say cross-pollination, it may occur by various means. There are many agents which brings about cross-pollination. Maybe wind, insect, etc. That will come again, that is agents of cross-pollination. So, what are these now? These are the pollen grains released by the male papaya plant. Okay, this is the female papaya plant that I am drawing. It's only a representation. This is a leaf. Again, I'll show you here. Calyx, right? This is the corolla. And again, this is the gynecium. This is the stigma of. Now, what have I shown here? Calyx, corolla, and gynecium only, no androecium. Thereby, what is this now? This is unisexual female flower. And this is a female plant of papaya. This is a female papaya plant. Okay. Let me just show you again here. This is the female plant. Female papaya plant. This is what? Unisexual female flower. This is unisexual male flower. This has androecium only and this has gynecium only. Okay. What is this now? This is gynecium. Thereby, the pollen grains will come and fall on the stigma of the female flower of the papaya plant, but it is not present on the same plant, it is present on another plant. Female flowers are seen on another plant. So, male flowers on one plant, female flowers on another plant, thereby we say dioecious. The plant is dioecious. Flowers are unisexual. Plant is dioecious. Flowers are unisexual. So, no other goal here. Cross-pollination must take place. What's the definition now? Transfer of pollen grains from the anther, okay, onto the receptive stigma of another flower on a different plant but of the same species. That means this is also a papaya plant, that's also a papaya. On another flower, okay, but it is on a different plant, but it is of the same species. Why different plant? It is not on the same plant, that's it. Once more I'll repeat, this is the third time I'm telling, transfer of pollen grains from the anther onto the receptive stigma of another flower on a different plant of the same species is called cross-pollination or xenogamy. Is it clear? Yes, students. Let us see the third type. Okay, let me show you the third type, that is geitonogamy. This is a plant, nodes, leaf arises. Okay, let me show you. This is a calyx, and then again corolla, and here I'll show you androecium, whereas here I'll show you gynecium. Okay, so this is what? This is gynoecium, gynecium, and this is androecium. For the pollen grains to release, what should happen? The anther should dehisce, isn't it? So here I am showing the anther has dehisced. Later, I'll just draw the pollen grains here. Okay, these are the pollen grains that I am showing. Have a look now. This is one plant. The pollen grains are being transferred from the anther to the stigma of another flower, but on the same plant, another flower on the same plant. Thereby it is said to be geitonogamy. So that means what? This is a unisexual male flower, okay, and this is unisexual female flower. So what do you say here? transfer of pollen grains from the anther onto the receptive stigma of another flower, but on the same plant is said to be gaetanogamy. See, some of the scientists say that this is a method of cross-pollination because the pollen grains are being transferred onto another flower, okay, onto the stigma of another flower, okay, transfer of pollen grains from the anther onto the stigma of another flower, but on the same plant, okay. Thereby they say it is cross-pollination. But some scientists say that since this is on the same plant, its genetic characters will be same. No such changes will occur. Thereby you can say that it is a type of self-pollination. Anyway, in your textbooks, they have classified it as a third type of pollination. So, one is, let me tell you the gist, self-pollination, that is from the anther onto the stigma of the same. What is it? Transfer of pollen grains from the anther onto the stigma of the same flower. Okay? When I say cross-pollination, it means transfer of pollen grains from anther onto the stigma of another flower on a different plant, okay. Thereby, here we say it is cross-pollination. This is another flower, this is same flower. And finally, gaetanogamy. Here we say that, just now I told you, transfer of pollen grains from the anther onto the stigma of another flower, but on the same plant is said to be gaetanogamy. Now we have seen that some of the plants like viola, oxalis and commalina shows two types of flowers. What are they? Number one is said to be chasmogamous flower and second is said to be cleistogamous flower. One is chasmogamous flower and the other is cleistogamous flower. If you just observe the plant, okay, it just shows the leaves and the flowers, but something different is, you will find chasmogamous flower like this. This is calyx, this is corolla, okay, and this is the androecium and this is the gynoecium, okay. This is said to be the gynoecium. That means what? You are seeing a bisexual flower and the androecium and gynoecium, that is, this is the female sex organ, this is the male sex organ, both are being exposed, okay, androecium and gynoecium are exposed. Thereby we say it is open, open for cross pollination. But what about the other flower? Hence, what do you call these flowers as? Chasmogamous flowers. Chasmogamous flowers are nothing wherein the androecium and gynoecium are exposed and cross pollination can take place. They are not covered, okay. Coming back to what? The cleistogamous flower. See, if this is the calyx, this is the, okay, let me show you. In case of commalina, the stem appears like this, monocot. Now the leaves are showing parallel venation. Yes, have a look here. This is the androecium. This is the gynoecium. Something special here. You'll see that both androecium and gynoecium are covered by corolla and this is the calyx. So what do you say? Calyx and corolla covers the sex organs, namely andrecium and gynoecium. That means andrecium and gynoecium, which are the essential whorls, are covered by non-essential whorls, that is calyx and corolla. Covered by closed means cleistous, hence the name cleistogamous flowers. Okay. So when I say here, this is a cleistogamous flower and the sex organs are covered by non-essential whorls, then no other go self-pollination has to take place. Okay. Here no other go self-pollination has to take place. So anyway, here we say the same plant showing two types of flowers. One is the chasmogamous flower, wherein the sex organs are exposed for cross-pollination, whereas the other is the cleistogamous flower, wherein the sex organs are covered by the non-essential whorls. Okay, let me pass on to the other details of pollination. So first part, what did I tell you? Pollination, its definition, etc. So here we say that the sex organs are covered by, let me show you again, yes, non-essential whorls. Okay, in the first part I told you pollination, definition, types of pollination, etc. As per to the syllabus, we are supposed to discuss about the advantages and disadvantages of self-pollination. Later we'll pass on to the agents for cross-pollination. Is it clear? Let me just write here. I think you're not able to see. Cleistogamous flowers. I've written here cleistogamous flower. Okay. Okay, students, hope you understood. The third type of pollination is geitonogamy. And in that I told you there are unisexual male flowers, unisexual female flowers, transfer of pollen grains from the anther onto the stigma of another flower on the same plant. But what about the other two cases? Self-pollination, I told you, pollen grains are transferred onto the stigma of the same flower. Cross-pollination, I told you, pollen grains are transferred onto the stigma of another flower on a different plant but of the same species. Geitonogamy, I just now told you. On the other hand, some plants like viola, oxalis and commalina shows two types of flowers. One is the chasmogamous flower and the other is cleistogamous flower. Chasmogamous flower is a normal flower wherein we find calyx, corolla and the andrecium and gynoecium exposed for cross-pollination, whereas in case of cleistogamous flower, we see that andrecium and gynoecium are covered by non-essential whorls of a flower, that is calyx and corolla. Hence, kleistos means covered. Okay, that's what we say, cleistogamous flower. But the specialities on the same plant, we are seeing both chasmogamous and cleistogamous flower. The very common example is commalina. Okay. Yes, students, let us see what are the advantages of self-pollination. The very first point is wastage of pollen grains can be reduced as no external pollinating agents are involved. As no external pollinating agents are involved. Okay. So what's the first one? Wastage. What are the advantages of self-pollination? I'll be coming to the disadvantages too. Since the pollen grains are being transferred from the anther onto the stigma of the same flower, no external agents are involved here. Suppose an external agent is involved, plenty of pollen grains must be produced, enormous amount of pollen grains must be produced and many of them go as a waste. That's what here we are telling, wastage of pollen grain can be reduced since no external pollinating agents are involved. Now you will be wondering, so what if the pollen grains are wasted? The reason is pollen grains are rich in nutrition. I told you, I think, they are used as food supplements. Thereby, we don't wish that the pollen grains are wasted. That's what we are mentioning this as a first point. Wastage of pollen grain can be reduced. Now, second point is, On the same plant, we are seeing the pollen grains being transferred to the stigma of the same flower. That means what? Genetic stability will be maintained because of self-pollination. What do you say? Genetic stability is maintained and we see pure lines and we see the pure lines. Okay, what's the third point? In relation to the pure lines we are discussing. That means what? When I say pure lines and that genetic stability is being maintained, imagine that there is a plant with all good qualities. When self-pollination is brought about, what happens? All the characters will be passed on to its offspring. Hence we say it is used to improve the crop. These pure lines can be used to improve the crops. So, what are the points? Wastage of pollen grains can be reduced because no external pollinating agents are involved. Then genetic stability is maintained, that is pure lines are maintained. These pure lines can be used to get or we can improve the crops based on this pure line. Taking the pure lines, we can improve the crops. Okay. Yes, students. Let us see what are the disadvantages of self-pollination. No doubt we said that self-pollination ensures genetic stability, etc. But what do most of the scientists say? They say that fruit got by self-pollination shows deterioration. Means what? Quality will not be good. They show deterioration. Second, when we come across the plants or the flowers exhibiting cross-pollination, finally the offsprings got from the product of cross-pollination will be very good. But what happens now? Because they are of the same plant, the genes are of the same plant, we don't find any change in the genotype. Thereby, here we say, this is also one of the disadvantage. We don't find any new genotype. The next point is, due to the production of genetic pure lines. In case of self-pollination, we say pure line is maintained, isn't it? Due to the production of genetic pure lines, the undesirable characters never be eliminated. Can never be eliminated. Okay? Let me repeat. Due to the production of genetic pure lines, undesirable characters can never be eliminated. They will also be inherited. And on the other hand, the most important point is, due to inbreeding or due to continuous self-pollination, there occurs inbreeding depression. Okay? We see inbreeding depression. Let me repeat the disadvantages of self-pollination. The fruit that is got shows deterioration. That is, quality will not be good and even the quantity that is produced will be less. On the other hand, in case of cross-pollination, the genes are exchanged between one plant and the other. But here, the pollen grains of the same flower falls on the stigma of the same flower. That means they are of the same plant. Hence, we don't find any new genotype. Next, due to production of genetic pure lines, undesirable characters can never be eliminated. Desirable characters will also be inherited. So also undesirable characters will also be inherited. It can never be eliminated. Finally, the most important is continuous self-pollination or inbreeding results in inbreeding depression. Is it clear? Yes, students. As and when the pollen grains are being carried away, they have to land on the receptive stigma in certain period. In other sense, what can I say? Pollen grains have viability. This viability differs from one plant to another. What is the meaning of viability? It's ability to bring about fertilization. What is the meaning of viability of pollen grains? Its ability to bring about fertilization. That means when it falls on the stigma of a flower that is of the same species, it should grow, it should develop, show the further changes. But suppose it doesn't show, it means its activity period is lost. Thereby, it cannot grow further nor bring about fertilization. We have a very common example, that is cereals. In the cereals, we have rice, wheat, wherein the viability of pollen grain lasts for about 30 minutes. But in the members of the family, Rosaceae, okay, leguminosae and Solanaceae, leguminosae, okay, and Solanaceae, the viability of pollen grain is much longer. It can stay viable for few months. But what about cereals like rice and wheat? It remains active or viable for 30 minutes only. In addition, viability depends on two factors, that is temperature and humidity. So, viability depends on what? It depends on the type of plant as well as it depends on the temperature and humidity. Okay, it depends on the temperature and humidity. Yes, students, let us pass on to an interesting topic, that is agents for cross-pollination. What are the agents for cross-pollination? These are categorized into two. Number one is biotic agents and the second is abiotic agents. When I say biotic agents, it includes animals, that is living. Here it includes wind and water. Includes in the sense cross-pollination takes place by animals, here it takes place by wind and water. What is cross-pollination by wind called? Cross-pollination by wind is called anemophily. Such flowers which are cross-pollinated by wind are called anemophilous. Okay, these are all 1 mark question. Please concentrate. Very simple. Doesn't mean you have to read again. Concentrate. Next, cross-pollination by water is called hydrophily. Such flowers which are cross-pollinated by water are called hydrophilous flowers. Okay, hydrophilous. Okay, these two are what? They are the abiotic factors or agents, I mean. They are the abiotic agents. More appropriately, we say it's abiotic agents. Okay. Next, let us pass on to pollination by animals. What is pollination by animals called? Zoophily. Pollination by animals is called zoophily. Such flowers which are cross-pollinated by animals are called zoophilous. When I say animals, which are the common ones? Number one, insects. So pollination, cross-pollination by insects is called entomophily. Such flowers which are cross-pollinated by insects are called entomophilous. Next, cross-pollination by birds are said to be ornithophily. Such flowers which are cross-pollinated by birds are called ornithophilous. Like this, there are many. Let us see which are the other ones. Yes, cross-pollination by ants are called myrmecophily. Such flowers which are cross-pollinated by ants are called myrmecophilous. Then, cross-pollination also occurs by snails. Cross-pollination by snails is called malacophily, and such flowers which are cross-pollinated by snails are called malacophilous. Even bats bring about cross-pollination. So, cross-pollination by bats is called chiropterophily, and such flowers are called chiropterophilous. So, we have animal cross-pollination by animals called zoophily. In that, insects, entomophily, such flowers entomophilous. Birds, ornithophily, such flowers ornithophilous. Ants, myrmecophily, such flowers myrmecophilous. Again, the process is called malacophily by snails, and the flowers are said to be malacophilous. Cross-pollination by bats is called chiropterophily, and such flowers are called chiropterophilous. Now, when cross-pollination is occurring, it means the flowers are being favored. That means the pollen grains are being transferred from one flower to another. That is, from the anther of one flower to the stigma of another flower. So, these agents for cross-pollination, especially the insects, okay, or we say birds, visit the flower, what for? To suck nectar and eat pollen grains. So, what are these animals doing? The animals are bringing about cross-pollination. In turn, the animals get reward. Okay, what do they get? They get reward from what? From plants. What is the reward they are getting? They are getting nectar and pollen grains. It is said that even the bats bring about pollination. Okay, so like this, all the animals that brings about pollination will get a reward from the plant. What is the reward? The reward is the nectar and pollen grain. Now, there are some cases wherein the insects or the animals will visit the flower to suck the nectar and eat the pollen grains, but they never help in pollination. So, those animals which will visit the flower just to take the reward, like just to eat the pollen grains and suck the nectar but not help in pollination, are considered to be cheaters. Example, we say yakka. Okay. What about in other cases? In other cases, we say the plants help them, they protect them. How? The plants protect the eggs laid by the insects. The plant will protect the eggs laid by the insects. In turn, it will help in pollination. Which will help in pollination? Insects. Now you'll be wondering, how will the insect help in pollination? It just comes inside, sucks the nectar, eats the pollen and then goes away. Imagine this is a flower. Okay, this is the calyx, a rough diagram I am showing. This corolla, here are the nectary glands. Okay, and this is the anther wherein the pollen grains are being released. This is the stigma, or I'll just not draw the stigma, I'll just show you that anther is present. It is open, releasing the pollen grains. Imagine an insect visits the flower. As and when this insect visits the flower, what for? It goes inside to suck the nectar or eat the pollen grains. But as and when it is passing, when the insect is passing inside, these pollen grains gets stuck to the body of the insect. They get stuck to the body of the insect. Let me show you in red. These are the pollen grains. Okay. The pollen grains may get stuck to the body of the insect because the anther is dehisced and the insect is passing inside. Okay, as usual, the insect unknowingly it enters in, just sucks the nectar and then goes back. But what is there on its body? The pollen grains have been stuck to the body. Now, if the same insect visits another flower and in the same manner it goes inside, it may come across the stigma wherein it rubs the stigma and goes inside. In that case, the pollen grains that are present on the body of the insect gets stuck to the stigma of another flower on a different plant. But if it is of the same species, it brings about cross-pollination. This is how we say cross-pollination occurs, and all this is only a matter of chance that it take place. Is it clear? So this is about the agents for cross-pollination. Let us see what are the adaptations or what are the characters of entomophilous flower, anemophilous flower and hydrophilous flower. Is it clear? Okay. Yes, students, let us see some of the characters of anemophilous flowers, or I can also say what are the adaptations in anemophilous flowers. So you all know by now what do we mean by anemophilous flowers? Flowers which are cross-pollinated by wind. So when I say wind, it is one of the abiotic factor. So if it is cross-pollinated by abiotic means, that means if cross-pollination occurs by abiotic means, we say it is non-directional. Whether it is wind or water, it is an abiotic means. Thereby we say the pollen grains can be carried away in any direction. It is non-directional. For this reason, to compensate the loss, that means pollination should occur, it should not go as a waste. So for this reason, what happens? Because it is abiotic, because it is non-directional, in case of wind and water, we see enormous amount of pollen grains are being produced. When I come to water again, I'll say that. But here remember, cross-pollination by anemophilous, the first point itself says enormous amount of pollen grains are produced to compensate the loss. The reason being they are abiotic and non-directional, compensate the loss. Second, it is just being carried away by wind, isn't it? Thereby, the flowers need not be attractive, and moreover, their flowers are not attractive. They are not attractive. Then, they are small because they should be easily carried away. Flowers are small. Okay, here we say small flowers are seen. No fragrance. Flowers do not emit fragrance. Flowers do not emit fragrance. Then the purpose of the insects visiting the flowers is what? Or the animals visiting the flower is what? To get nectar and pollen grains. But here there's no necessary at all, isn't it? Thereby, flowers do not have nectary glands. Okay? Or in other words, I can say they do not produce nectar. Okay? They do not produce nectar. Or nectary glands are absent. Next, the pollen grains, important, the pollen grains should be light in weight. They should be easily carried away, isn't it? Pollen grains are light in weight, they are smooth, dry and small, so that they can be easily carried away by wind. These are the characters of the pollen grains of anemophilous flowers. Please remember. Next, I told you flowers are small, non-attractive. These flowers have perianth. Perianth means calyx and corolla cannot be different. In some plants, we see calyx and corolla that has been differentiated. But in some, we don't find calyx also same, corolla also same. Here, example, I can say hibiscus. Just imagine to differentiate calyx. Here it is Michaelia champaka. Michaelia champaka. Calyx and corolla appear same. Therefore, they are said to be perianth. Undifferentiated calyx and corolla is said to be perianth. First here you read that. Thereby here we say the perianth is also very, very small. Okay, so flowers are small, non-attractive, and again they are showing perianth which are very small. They do not emit fragrance, they do not produce nectar. Okay, because the flowers are very small, tiny, they group together to form an inflorescence. They group together to form an inflorescence. Yes. Just observe here one important thing. I told you flowers are small and they're grouped to form an inflorescence. What for? Why should they form group? Why should they form a cluster? That is to trap the pollen grains. Then we see the style long and stigma to be feathery. Style long, okay. This is the style which is long and stigma, okay, this is the stigma appears to be feathery. That is to trap the pollen grains easily. They can trap the pollen grains easily. Then the flowers are well exposed, okay. They can be easily carried away. If not, they can trap the pollen grains. No other means of attraction we see here. Then if this is the anther, if this is the filament, this is the anther. It is just attached to a long filament, okay. To a long filament, this anther is attached. This is a bilobed anther. It's a long filament and only at the tip the anthers will be attached. Just for a small or little force of wind, the anthers will get broken or separated from the filament and it will be carried away. Thereby we call such anthers as versatile anthers. Versatile anthers are the characteristic type of anthers of what? Anemophilous flowers. Pollen grains, light, smooth, small and dry characters or characteristic features of the pollen grains of anemophilous flowers. Okay. So, these are some of the adaptations that we see in anemophilous flowers. Just the opposite is in case of entomophilous flowers. But almost same is with reference to the characters of hydrophilous flowers because they are also what? There are also flowers which are cross-pollinated by an abiotic factor. Okay, almost the same characters with one or two additions. Let us see what are the characters. Yes, students, let us see what are the adaptations or the characters of hydrophilous flower. I told you hydrophilous flowers means they are also the flowers which are cross-pollinated by an abiotic factor, that is water. So, hence the very first point we say flowers are not attractive. Okay, flowers are not attractive. They do not emit fragrance. They do not emit fragrance. Next, the non-essential whorls, namely perianth, are very small such that the essential organs, that is andrecium and gynoecium, are well seen. Now, these non-essential orals, that is perianth, we can say they are almost reduced or even absent sometimes. Hence, these stamens and carpels are said to be naked. They are not covered by the perianth or the non-essential whorls. Yes, these hydrophilous flowers do not produce nectar. Just few minutes back I told you about anemophilous flowers, isn't it? What did I say? Enormous amount of pollen grains are produced. What for? To compensate the loss. The pollen grains will maintain the specific gravity. What are the other characters of pollen grains? The pollen grains are long, ribbon-like or needle-like to cut water. To cut water. So, what about pollen grains? Pollen grains are long, ribbon or needle-like to cut water to bring about the pollination in the flowers which are submerged. Okay. One more special character of the pollen grains of hydrophilous flowers is they have mucilaginous covering. This protects the pollen grains from getting wet. Okay, it is covered by mucilaginous covering. And very common example is Vallisneria and Hydrilla, which are the freshwater plants. These flowers, the flowers of Vallisneria and Hydrilla. Flowers of Vallisneria and Hydrilla have long stalk. They have long stalks so that they can easily float on water. They can emerge and then float on the water surface. Okay. Yes, let me just brush up for you. Adaptations are the characters of the hydrophilous flowers. Hydrophilous flowers means it is pollination by water. When I say pollination by water, it is an abiotic means. Okay, thus the flowers are not attractive, do not emit fragrance, perianth is reduced, stamens and carpels are naked, and they do not even produce nectar. Enormous amount of pollen grains are produced to compensate the loss. Most of the pollen grains will have the capacity of maintaining the specific gravity. Then pollen grains are long, ribbon-like, needle-like to cut the water. Okay, so that they can go deep in and bring about pollination of the flowers being present inside, and then they have a mucilaginous covering so that it will protect them from getting wet. Example, in case of Vallisneria and Hydrilla, which is a freshwater plant, there is a presence of long stalk. Flowers of Vallisneria and Hydrilla have long stalk. Okay. Now, we have to study in detail about the pollination in Vallisneria. Let us see how it occurs. Yes, students, pollination by water. I told you pollination, cross-pollination by water is called hydrophily. Such flowers which are cross-pollinated by water are said to be hydrophilous flowers. Now, pollination by water is very rare. It is seen in about 30 genera of flowering plants. Let me be clear here. Pollination by water is rare in flowering plants. Okay. It is seen only in 30 genera of the flowering plants. That too, most of them are monocotyledons. In monocotyledons we see. We have two examples here. Pollination by Vallisneria, which is a fresh water plant, and we have another example to be studied, that is Zoostera, which is a marine water plant, Zoostera is otherwise called seagrass. Now we have a special means of pollination. Why do you say special means? Example, water hyacinth and water lily. No doubt it is a hydrophilous plant. Okay? But cross-pollination, okay? Cross-pollination occurs by wind or insects as seen in land plants. Now, these are hydrophilous plants. But what happens? We see the means of pollination by wind or insects like any other land plants. What's the reason? See, let me assume that this is the water. Okay. The plants, that is water hyacinth and water lily, will emerge above the surface of water level. Okay, they emerge above the surface of water level. Thereby, pollination occurs by wind or insects. They do not come in contact with the surface of water even. They emerge above the level of water surface. Hence, we say pollination in such plants like water hyacinth and water lily, which are the hydrophilous plants. Pollination takes place by wind or insects, just like in other land plants. Let us see about Vallisneria and Zoostera or seagrass. Yes, students, let us see how pollination occurs in Vallisneria and Zoostera. Vallisneria is an example for fresh water plant, and this Zoostera is an example for marine water plant. See, if this is the water surface, and here let me consider this is the water surface here. The stalk of the Vallisneria is very long, thereby the flowers float on the surface of water. What's the reason? The stalk is very long. The pollen grains that are released will pass on to the stigma of, okay, these are the pollen grains. The pollen grains will move passively to reach the stigma of the flower and bring about pollination. Okay, it brings about pollination. This is the pollen grain that is moving passively and reach the stigma of the flower, that is Vallisneria, where is it floating, and it brings about pollination. Now, what about Zoostera? Here we say the Zoostera is a flower which is submerged. Thereby what? The pollen grains that are produced, the pollen grains that are produced must move inside. They have to move inside the water. To move inside the water, they must have the capacity of cutting the water and going in. Thereby, the pollen grains will be ribbon-like or they will be needle-like so as to cut the water and move passively inside. By chance, it meets the stigma of the flower, it brings about pollination. This is what we explain with reference to Vallisneria and Zoostera. This is what we explained with reference to Vallisneria and Zoostera. Very common question to be asked. It is commonly asked. Okay, students, let me repeat. Pollination in Vallisneria, pollination in Zoostera. Vallisneria is an example for freshwater plant and Zoostera or the sea grass is an example for marine water plant. In case of Vallisneria, we see that the flowers have a long stalk so that they come and float on the surface of the water. The pollen grains that are released on the surface of the water will passively move towards the female flower and by chance it may reach the stigma and bring about cross-pollination. Now on the other hand, in case of Zoostera, the flower is submerged. Thereby what happens? The pollen grains that are produced must move inside to reach the stigma of the flower and bring about pollination. So in nature we see some things. What is it? The pollen grains of such plants are ribbon-like or needle-like so that they can cut the water and go inside. But even here it just moves passively and by chance it may reach the stigma of the flower so as to bring about pollination. And remember, such pollen grains are covered by mucilaginous covering so that it will be protected from getting wet. This is about cross-pollination in Vallisneria and Zoostera. Is it clear? Okay. Let us pass on to the topic that is pollination. Transfer of pollen grains from the anther onto the receptive stigma of a flower is called pollination. It's a 1-mark question. Then pollination is a mechanism to achieve fertilization because both the male and the female plants are non-motile in angiosperms. In lower forms, they just, at least the gametes keep on moving, isn't it? A thin film of water is required for the process of fertilization, we say. But here, both the male and the female plants are non-motile, here in the sense in angiosperms. Thereby, pollination is the mechanism to achieve fertilization. Types of pollination. There are 3 main types of pollination. One is the self-pollination or autogamy, and the second is cross-pollination, and the third is geitonogamy. Okay, let us see. Transfer of pollen from the anther onto the receptive stigma of the same flower is called self-pollination. Self-pollination is possible only among plants bearing bisexual flowers. Okay, these bisexual flowers shows anthesis, means anther dehiscence and receptivity of stigma occurs simultaneously. Anther dehiscence is otherwise called anthesis. Okay, only if both anther maturing time and the stigma maturing time is same, then only self-pollination can occur. Okay, simultaneously, maturity of the male and the female sex organ may help in self-pollination. That's what I told you now. That is synchrony in pollen release and stigma receptively. Pollen release and stigma maturity should be same. Okay, synchrony in pollen release and stigma receptivity. Okay, moreover, they should be close to each other. Some plants such as viola, which is commonly called pansy, oxalis and commalina, produce 2 types of flowers. See, these 3 words you have to remember. It's a 1-mark or NEET question. Okay, Pansy or Viola oxalis comalina produce two types of flowers. Which are the two types of flowers? Chasmogamous flowers and cleistogamous flowers. Chasmogamous flowers exposes the mature anthers and stigma to the pollinating agent, whereas here the non-essential whorls covers the reproductive organs. Cleistose means closed. Okay. Thus, cleistogamous flowers produce assured seed set even in the absence of pollinators. That means what? The andrecium and gynoecium are covered by accessory whorls, thereby no other self-pollination is a must, and hence we can expect the fruit, because cross-pollination is by a matter of chance, we say, they're carried away by pollinators. By chance they may fall on the receptive stigma and then pollination takes place, but here no pollinators, accessory whorls covers the sex organ, hence we say that seeds are assured. In the sense, fruits are formed definitely. Second type of pollination, I told you, cross-pollination, transfer of pollination from the anther onto the receptive stigma of another flower on a different plant of the same species. Another flower on a different plant but of the same species is called cross-pollination. Transfer of pollen grains from the anther to the stigma may be of different variety or same variety. It should be of the same species, but they may be intervarietal, or we say they may be intravarietal. If it is intervarietal, we say it's xenogamy. Means what? Rice is otherwise called Oryza sativa. One variety is said to be basmati. Another variety of rice is said to be sonari. So, Oryza sativa variety basmati, Oryza sativa variety sonari. So, if these two cross, or I can say when pollination occurs between these two plants, then it is said to be intervarietal. Okay? Such type of cross pollination is said to be xenogamy. Next is geitonogamy. Some of them say geitonogamy is self-pollination, some of them consider it as cross-pollination. As per your syllabus, we say it is cross-pollination, transfer of pollen from the anther onto another flower on the same plant is said to be geitonogamy. So, we say here, even though geitonogamy is cross-pollination and involves an agent, genetically it is similar to autogamesis, the pollens are from the same plant. Okay. Yes, let us see the next topic. See, this a bit extra point that's not there in your syllabus, but they can ask for NEET. Advantages of self-pollination. Wastage of pollen grain is reduced, okay, so as to avoid the other pollen grains from falling on the stigma. Okay, so once more I'll read, wastage of pollen grain is reduced as no external pollinating agents are involved. Plants exhibiting self-pollination show genetic stability, that is, it maintains pure lines. The good characters will be passed on from the parents to the offspring, but along with that, remember, the unwanted characters also pass. Thereby, we say we have both advantages and disadvantages in self-pollination. So, these are the advantages what I am talking. Self-pollination ensures fruit production. On the other hand, sometimes genetic pure lines can be drawn for improvement of crops. Disadvantages, quality of the fruits got by self-pollination day by day deteriorates. Thereby, we say it exhibits deterioration. Quality, quantity, everything decreases. Since male and the female sex organ belong to the same plant, there is no chance for production of new genotype at all. Okay, due to the production of genetic pure lines, undesirable characters. Few minutes back I told you, just as the desirable characters pass on, the undesirable characters are also passed on. Thus, they are never eliminated. But as and when self-pollination continues, it results in inbreeding depression. Okay. The pollen grains have to land on the stigma before it loses its viability. Viability means its capacity to bring about fertilization. But the viability of the pollen grain depends on the temperature and humidity. In case of cereals like rice and wheat, pollen grains remains viable for 30 minutes after the release, but in some members like Rosaceae, Leguminaceae and Solanaceae, they remain viable for months together. Okay. Agents for cross-pollination, there are two main agents, biotic agents and abiotic agents. Biotic agents are brought about by animals, whereas abiotic includes the wind and water as pollinators. Majority of the plants use biotic agents for cross-pollination. Only a few plants use abiotic agents for pollination. Biotic agents, pollination by animals. Yes, these are all very important questions. Pollination by animals is called zoophily. Such flowers which are cross-pollinated by animals are said to be zoophilous. And yes, this is also 1 mark, 2 mark or even 5 marks question. This includes insects. Cross-pollination by insect is said to be entomophily. Such flowers which are cross-pollinated by insects are said to be entomophilous. Now, cross-pollination by birds is said to be ornithophily. Such pollination which takes place by birds are said to be ornithophilous flowers. Such flowers which are cross-pollinated by birds. Similarly, cross-pollination bats is said to be chiropterophily. Such flowers are said to be chiropterophilous. Then pollination by snails is malacophily. Such flowers which are cross-pollinated by snails are said to be malacophilous. Cross-pollination by ants is said to be myrmecophily. Such flowers which are cross-pollinated by ants are called myrmecophilous. Okay. Let me pass on to another topic, that is abiotic agents are wind and water. Let us see how they help. So, two agents are wind and water. Cross-pollination by wind is said to be anemophily. Such flowers which are cross-pollinated by wind are said to be anemophilous. Cross-pollination by water is said to be hydrophily. Such flowers are said to be hydrophilous. Pollination by water is very rare in flowering plants. That too, it is limited only for 30 genera in monocotyledons. But water is a regular mode of transport for male gametes among the lower group of plants like algae, bryophytes and pteridophytes. For some bryophytes and pteridophytes, the distribution is limited because they need water to transport male gametes to bring about fertilization. So, let us see what are the characters or adaptations of anemophilous flower. Very, very important. Okay, 1, 2, 3 or 5 marks question. Pollination by wind is common among abiotic factors. Then flowers produce enormous quantity of pollen to compensate the loss, since abiotic means of pollination is non-directional. Flowers are small, inconspicuous, having a single ovule in each ovary, and many flowers are packed together to form an inflorescence. Best example is the corn cob, where the tassels, that is the style and stigma, wave in the wind and trap the pollen grains. Pollen grains are devoid of fragrance and they are not attractive. Why should they be attractive? It is only a means of wind that is carrying the pollen grains. Reduction in the perianth size, undifferentiated calyx and corolla. See, if this is calyx, this is corolla, first year you have read. If this is calyx, this is also corolla, that means both appear same. Undifferentiated calyx and corolla is called perianth. Okay. The flower is said to be homoclematis flower. Such flowers with perianth are said to be homoclematis flower. Flowers are grouped into clusters for trapping pollen grain. Important point. Flowers are small. What are the characters of pollen grains of anemophilous flowers? Flowers are small, smooth, light in weight and non-sticky, dry, to be transported easily by wind currents. Female flowers have long style and feathery stigma to trap the pollen grain. Stamens are exposed stamens are exposed, that is they come out of the accessory whorls so that the pollens are easily dispersed into wind currents. Stamens with versatile and the long style and bilobed stigma, they keep on moving. Okay, when there's wind, the entire thing cuts off and they're being carried away by wind. Thereby we say stamens are versatile in nature. Absence of nectary glands, that is the nectaries are absent. Wind pollination is very common in grasses. Okay. Yes, students, let me pass on to the next topic, that is characters bar adaptations of hydrophilous flowers. That means Pollination by water. Okay. Now here, highly reduced perianth. That means what? Calyx and corolla appears to be same and they're highly reduced. Sometimes they're absent, wherein we say naked stamens and carpels. Accessory whorls are not attractive. Calyx and corolla are not attractive. No fragrance of flower. It's not even needed because it is pollinated by water. Large number of pollen grains are produced to compensate the loss. They're being carried away by water. Thereby, by chance, they meet the stigma of the same species. Then it will pollinate. Thereby, to compensate the loss. Okay, pollen grains are produced in enormous amount. Pollen grains are modified to maintain the specific gravity. Pollen grains are exceptionally needle-like to cut water. Characteristic feature of the pollen grain of hydrophilous flower. 1 mark on each question. Flowers possess long stalk, Vallisneria and hydrilla. In many species, pollen grains are covered by mucilaginous covering, protected or it protects it from wetting. Flowers do not produce nectar. All these are very important points. Just the opposite you'll see in entomophilous flowers. Okay. Yes, students. Let me pass on to the next topic, that is characters bar adaptations of entomophilous flowers. Entomophilous means insect pollinated flowers. Pollination by insects is said to be entomophily. Such flowers which are pollinated by insects are called entomophilous flowers. Let us see what are the characters of such flowers. Flowers are large. They should be and they are brightly colored and attractive. Presence of nectary glands. They emit fragrance. Suppose the petals are not attractive. For example, in Mucianda we see like this. Petals are small. Thereby, one of the sepal is modified into petal-like structure to attract the insect. Okay. This is a very important 1 mark and NEET question. In Salvia, all the sepals are modified into petals. Okay. In Canna indica, which is a flower commonly seen in the flower shows as a bright red large flowers. Okay. Canna indica, the staminodes, what you see here is not the petals, they are the staminodes, sterile stamens which are modified into petal-like structure. Okay. Canna indica, staminodes, sterile stamens. So have a look here, you have 1 mark question. What are staminodes? Sterile stamens. These are brightly colored and petaloid. Some flowers like Rafflesia emit rotten meat smell that attracts the flies and help in cross-pollination. What are the characters of pollen grains of entomophilous flowers? They are large, thick, spiny with sticky surface. Is it clear? Note some important points here. Many flowering plants use a range of animals as their pollinating agents, like for example bees, butterflies, moths, sunbirds, hummingbirds, etc. Some large animals like lemurs, primates, arboreal rodents, tree dwelling, or reptiles like gecko lizards, garden lizards are the pollinating agents or the pollinators in few species. Flowers of animal pollinated plants are specifically adapted for a particular species of an animal. The flowers pollinated by flies and bees secrete foul odor to attract these animals. Yes, students, to sustain animal visits, flower has to provide reward to the animals. So, nectar and pollen grains are the usual floral rewards. In some species, floral rewards are in providing safe places to lay the eggs. So, very common examples flowers of Amorphophallus. When animal comes to harvest the reward in a flower, the pollen grains get stuck to its body because the animal comes in contact with the stigma and the anthers. When the animals with pollen grains on its body comes in contact with the stigma of another flower, it brings about pollination. A similar relationship exists between the species of moth and plant yucca. NEET question and 1 mark, where both cannot complete their life cycle without each other. Moth deposits eggs in the locule of the ovary, and the flower in turn is pollinated by moth. As the seeds develop, larvae of the moth comes out of the egg. Okay? Yes, passing on to the next topic, that is pollination by water. This is called hydrophily. Such flowers which are pollinated by water are said to be hydrophilous flowers. Okay? Pollination by water. Okay? This is called hydrophily, and such flowers which are pollinated by water are called hydrophilous flowers. Pollination by water is very rare, seen only in few flowering plants, especially monocot, and that to 30 genera. Vallisneria and Hydrilla are the examples for freshwater plants, whereas Zoostera is a sea grass seen in marine water. In freshwater aquatic plants like water hyacinth, water lily, the flowers emerge above the level of water and are pollinated by insects or wind. Okay? As in most of the land plants, very important. See, even though it's a hydrophilous flower, because it emerges out of the surface of the water, it may be pollinated by by insects or wind. Okay? In Vallisneria, the female flowers reach the surface of the water by long stalk. Pollen grains of the male flowers are released onto the surface of water. They are carried passively by the water currents. Some of them may eventually reach the female flowers and their stigma. Okay. In case of Zoostera or sea grass, female flowers remain submerged in water and the pollen grains are released inside the water. Pollen grains in many such species are long, ribbon-like, and are carried passively inside the water. Some of them may reach the stigma and achieve pollination. This is important. Such pollen grains are protected from wetting by mucilaginous covering. How is that? Pollen grains doesn't get wet when it is in water, means such pollen grains have mucilaginous covering that prevents them from wetting. Hydrophilous flowers are not attractive and do not produce nectar. In Gaetonogamy, self-pollination. In Gaetonogamy and self-pollination, pollination brings genetically same type of pollen grain onto the stigma, whereas in cross-pollination, xenogamy, we say, pollination brings about genetically different type of pollen grains onto the stigma. I think I told you about this. Transfer of pollen grains from the anther onto the receptive stigma of another flower on a different plant of the same species is called cross-pollination. But if it is intervarietal, it is said to be xenogamy. If you have forgotten, you can just refer the points there, okay, under xenogamy.